You've been told your whole life that necessity is the mother of invention. It's a good line. Aristotle said it. People still say it at TED Talk. It sounds true. It is also only half the story. Because if you actually go back and look at the moments that change civilization, not the ones historians polish up for textbooks, but the real, messy, accidental moments, you find something strange. Most of them weren't born from necessity. They were born from boredom. A man trapped in a farmhouse during a plague. A soldier scribbling in a dugout while artillery shook the ground. A batch of dough someone forgot about and left sitting on a table overnight. These are the real origin stories of the modern world, and they all have one thing in common. Nobody was trying to change history. They were just trying to get through a very long, very empty afternoon. Here's what boredom actually built. 1665, London. The bubonic plague has returned. Not a minor outbreak, a catastrophe. In the space of 18 months, 100,000 people die in London alone. The streets empty, businesses close, the city shuts down. Cambridge University sends its students home. One of them is a 22-year-old from Lincolnshire named Isaac Newton. Quiet, solitary, described by his peers as strange. He packs his things and goes back to his mother's farmhouse in Woolsthorpe, a small stone house in the middle of nowhere. No professors, no curriculum, no lectures, no deadlines, nothing to do. And so he starts fiddling. He builds himself some bookshelves, sets up a small workspace, fills blank notebooks with whatever he feels like thinking about. He has no assignment, no research brief, no supervisor checking his progress. For 18 months, he just wanders intellectually, follows whatever thread looks interesting, drops it when it bores him, picks up another. In those 18 months, Newton invents calculus. He formulates the laws of gravity. He conducts his famous prism experiments and discovers that white light is made of every colour combined. He lays the foundation for classical mechanics, the framework that will explain the motion of every object on Earth and in space for the next 250 years. His biographer, James Gleick, would later write, "The plague year was his transfiguration." Solitary and almost incommunicado, he became the world's paramount mathematician. Newton himself reflected on it differently. He said those years were the prime of his age for invention, the most creative period of his life. He didn't make those discoveries because someone asked him to. He didn't make them because he had to. He made them because he had nothing else to do and a mind that couldn't stay still. The plague gave him nothing but time. He gave the world everything else. Fast forward 250 years, different war, different kind of hell, the Western Front. A young British officer named John Ronald Reuel Tolkien is sitting in a trench somewhere in France. He is 24 years old. Around him, the Battle of the Somme is grinding through its worst weeks, 60,000 British casualties on the first day alone. 2 of Tolkien's closest friends are already dead. The trenches smell of mud and rot. The artillery never stops. Days pass, with nothing to do but wait and fear and listen. Tolkien pulls out a notebook. He can't stop languages. He has been obsessed with languages since childhood. Old English, Finnish, Welsh, Gothic. He starts inventing one, an Elvish tongue, grammatically complete with its own phonology and rules of evolution. Then he needs somewhere to put the language, so he starts building the world it belongs to, in grimy canteens, at lectures in cold fogs, in dugouts under shellfire, on whatever scraps of paper he could find. The Lord of the Rings begins in a trench. Tolkien survived the war. He spent the next 40 years expanding what he had started in that notebook. By the time The Lord of the Rings was published in 1954, it had become the most complete fictional world ever constructed. With its own history, mythology, calendars, it created the entire genre of modern fantasy. Every fantasy novel, film and game that exists today traces its DNA directly back to what a bored soldier wrote while waiting for the artillery to stop. He wasn't trying to build a genre. He was trying to survive a Tuesday. Now here's one nobody tells you. It's 1894. Battle Creek, Michigan. Dr. John Harvey Kellogg runs a health sanitarium, a strange hybrid of hospital, spa and hotel, where wealthy Americans come to be cured of whatever the 19th century thought was wrong with them. Kellogg is obsessed with diet, digestion, and bland food he believes is the cornerstone of a healthy life. His patients are bored. His kitchen staff are bored. Even the experiments are boring. One day, a batch of wheat dough is prepared for a recipe and forgotten, left sitting out, neglected. By the time someone remembers it, it has gone stale and slightly fermented. Instead of throwing it away, accounts differ on who, because several people later claimed credit, decides to run it through the rollers anyway, see what happens. It comes out in thin, crispy flakes. They bake it. They try it. It's actually good. Kellogg's brother Will immediately sees what his brother doesn't. This isn't a sanitarium experiment. This is a product. He adds a little sugar, which infuriates his brother on philosophical grounds, and takes the recipe to market. The result is corn flakes. And behind it, an entire industry. Within a decade, 40 cereal companies have launched in the United States. The modern American breakfast, the one that 1 billion people eat every morning, exists because someone left dough on a table and forgot about it. Here's where it gets interesting. For most of modern history, boredom was considered a moral failing, a sign of weakness, something to be overcome, pushed through, avoided. But neuroscientists started looking at what actually happens to the brain when you're bored. And what they found changed everything. When you're bored, genuinely, deeply bored, with nothing external demanding your attention, your brain doesn't switch off, it switches modes. A network of regions called the default mode network activates. This is the system responsible for imagination, creative connection, future planning, and the kind of thinking that links ideas that have no obvious relationship to each other. Boredom, it turns out, is the brain's reset state. It's when the mind reaches for new patterns, unexpected combinations, ideas it doesn't have time to find. Newton's farmhouse, Tolkien's trench, Kellogg's forgotten dough. These weren't accidents of circumstance. They were the same mechanism working in different bodies at different moments in history. The absence of stimulation forced the mind inward, and what it found there changed the world. And here's the uncomfortable part. We don't get bored anymore. Not really. Not in the way Newton got bored in that farmhouse. Not in the way Tolkien got bored in that trench. We have a device in our pockets that ensures we will never spend more than 30 seconds with nothing to look at. Waiting for a bus. Check the phone. Awkward silence. Check the phone. Waking up at 3 a.m. Check the phone. The average person checks their phone over 100 times a day. The average time spent on social media is 2.5 hours. That's not including streaming or podcasts or all the other inputs that fill every gap. The gaps are gone, and the gaps were where everything came from. This isn't nostalgia. This is neuroscience. The default mode network, the imaginative wandering. None of that happens when there's always something to watch, read, scroll through. The brain gets what it's given. Give it constant input, it processes input. Give it silence, it builds. Newton had 18 months of silence. We have about 30 seconds before we reach for the phone. The things that boredom built are not minor things. Calculus, gravity, the laws of motion, the entire framework through which we understand the physical universe, built in a farmhouse during a plague by a man with nothing else to do. Middle-earth. Modern fantasy, the genre that dominates global cinema and literature, sketched in a notebook in a WWI trench by a soldier waiting for the shelling to stop. The modern breakfast industry, billions of bowls of cereal eaten every single morning across the Western world. Born because someone forgot a batch of dough on a kitchen counter. Necessity builds what we have to build. Boredom builds everything else. And everything else, it turns out, is most of it. There's a version of history where Newton stays at Cambridge, where Tolkien never goes to war, where someone throws out the stale dough. In that version, everything is a little later, a little slower, a little less. In the version that actually happened, a plague came, a war came, someone was distracted, and the world changed. The next time you find yourself with nothing to do and no phone in reach, with a genuinely, uncomfortably empty stretch of time and no idea how to fill it, don't fill it. See what your brain builds when you finally let it wander. History suggests it might be worth something.